This is legit the third time I've recorded this episode, so you better sit there, you better watch, you better listen, and you better just enjoy this episode. I had an outline I was following, but since this being the third time I recorded it, this is why I can't self-produce. I am just going to freeball. I'm just going to get on this mic. I'm going to talk to you guys, and we're going to have an amazing, amazing time. Welcome to Literally My Life, the podcast where I guide you through girlhood. I guide you through all of the prepubescent issues like acne and, your first date, your first car, and all those things. But it's a little different these days because I am in college now. I'm actually finishing my first year of college, which we're going to talk about in this episode. So I'm also guiding you through young womanhood, like paying your first bill and going to college for the first time and all of those crazy things that happen now that you're on your own. But before we get into today's episode, make sure to follow Literally My Life's TikTok and Instagram, both links in our episode description below. Also, subscribe to our blog. I cannot promise anything because I'm tired right now, but I would like to say the daily vlogs are coming back this week. I would like to say it. I don't know yet, but I love writing the blogs. I was in my elevator the other day at my dorm, and this girl told me that she loves reading my articles, and I was like, oh, I got to get back on my article grind. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel because I have so many really cool vlogs that I've been posting on there lately. I'm kind of in my YouTube bag these days. So subscribe to our YouTube channel because you don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss it either. Like, come on, I know you want to be there. And let's get into it. So guys, I'm turning 19 on Thursday, and I could not be more excited. I look back at the girl who started this podcast because if you're new here, let me give you the origin story. My junior year of high school, I unexpectedly fell extremely ill. I had to live in Ann H. and Roberts Lurie's Children's Hospital, downtown Chicago, and I was really sick. And then when I was in outpatient recovery and I finally was able to go home, but I still wasn't able to return to school, I kind of felt lonely. I kind of was going through some stuff, so I was like, hey, why not start a podcast? I was literally in my room. No, I wasn't in my room. I was in my shower, and I had this thought. I was like, let me start a podcast. I get my best thoughts in the shower. I was like, let me start a podcast. And I got my telephone, I got wired headphones, and I started a podcast. And I literally just came up with podcast episode ideas just like off the top of my head, wrote them in my diary, and boom. That is how Literally My Life came into fruition. Or, yeah, is that the right word? I don't know. It's 2 a.m. I'm tired. And I'm really happy to be here. Well, I started it, I was 16 when that started. Now I'm 19, and so much has changed. So much has changed. So I want to kind of rest and reflect and talk about that just a little bit, because this episode's going to probably be shorter because I'm tired. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Turning 19 is making me reflect. And when I was 16 and I was starting this podcast, I was really lonely. And I never really valued the art of being alone. I didn't get to value that. I didn't take that time in my life because it was so hard and traumatic. I didn't see it as like a time in my life to really get to explore who I am or really get to understand what was going on with myself. Like, why did I have to be so isolated? I just looked at isolation as a curse. And literally my life was kind of like my escape from isolation. Now, I have to say, and I've said it many times before, the best part of losing everything is getting it all back. And God gave it all back to me and more, because God promised abundance. He promised overflow, and that's what I got. Out of the sickness, I got to go back to school. I made new friends, and I got a new career that I never would have thought for myself. Like, who would have ever thought that I would have been a sports reporter? Who would have ever put their bottom dollar on that? I got into sports reporting. I got into the University of Colorado Boulder, even though I didn't expect myself to move to Colorado. Like, just this whole new life was birthed out of what felt like a death. And I wish I could go back to that girl. I wish I could go back and talk to that person and say, hey, everything's going to be okay. There's a saying that everything works out in the end. And if it's not working out, then it's just not the end. And it's the truth. There were so many times that I was so anxious about the future. There were so many times where I just had the worst anxiety. And I just did not know how things were going to pan out for myself, which is what I think caused me to be so heavily upset and depressed and, feeling lonely. And looking at this chapter that's closing now with me, about to turn 19, I'm like, wow, I never really realized that God had to isolate me to hear his voice. And once I heard his voice, my whole life changed. Like, once I heard his voice and listened to it, my life changed so much for the better. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, loneliness is something that I still struggle with. I've never been the girl to have a lot of friends, ever. I don't have very much of any. I have like one close friend since I was a little girl, and I have like my little sister, or this girl that I call my little sister. I have like a lot of friends, actually. I'm not gonna lie. I do have a good circle of close friends, but I've never had like a huge friend group. I don't have friends that I see every day and talk to every day, but the friends that I do have are so real and genuine that I feel like it makes up for that. But I do have moments where I'm like, wow, I do feel lonely, especially like this last week of college. I've actually been feeling pretty lonely. But I now look at loneliness as more of a gift than a curse. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned in these last 3 years is there's so much beauty that can be birthed when you're alone. Like this podcast. I would have never, even thought of it or put it into fruition had I not been so isolated and had I not been alone, had I not gotten sick. So I think being lonely is a beautiful thing. I think that we look at it as a curse of like nobody wants to be around me, rather than I'm being protected from being around people who might not have my best interest at heart. Or I'm being protected from situations that I'm not supposed to be in. So I'm alone, but this is the time for me to get to know myself. This is a time for me to grow. This is a time for me to figure out who I really am. And that's how I look at it now. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned since starting this podcast, and in the last 3 years, almost 3 years now. Wow, it's been a long time. I'm getting a little some miles on me. I'm aging up a little bit, guys. I'm not okay with that. Coinciding with that, my freshman year is ending. I almost said senior year because I'm like still in that mind. My freshman year of college is ending, everyone. Now, if you're new here, I'll give you a little backstory to that as well. I'm from Chicago, and I went to the University of Colorado Boulder. That's literally all it is. I go to the University of Colorado Boulder, and it is very different than anything that I have ever experienced in my life, and that is a beautiful thing. Now, going into college, I did not like it. You can go through my old episodes and I've said it before. I did not think it was for me. Boulder is very different than Chicago. The people here are very different than the people in Chicago, and I didn't grow up around an environment like this, and I didn't feel like I fit in. I still don't feel like I fit in, and I hated it at first. But I'm very glad that I persevered and that I stayed, and I'm going to tell you why. Going to college is a beautiful experience that I think everyone should experience because it diversifies your mind. It is the school of life. I have met people, in Chicago, like growing up in Chicago and stuff, I only knew a certain kind of person that was similar to me. I only knew people who came from, one parent households, who were in the same tax bracket, who were in the same high school circle, and that was it. That was pretty much all the knowledge that I had. Now, I know people who come from so many different backgrounds, so many different states, so many different tax brackets, who are different races, who are different, who just grew up way differently than I have. And it opens your mind to so much that you just didn't know. And that's why I'm so glad I went to college. It also has taught me how to be an adult. College teaches you a lot about your major, but it teaches you the most about life. College is a school of life. And it'll teach you the kind of person that you're going to become because it sets you up for adulthood, true adulthood. And because this is adulthood, but this is adulthood with a little guidance because you still have a responsibility to go to school. You're not responsible to have a full-time job and pay bills and have children and all that. You're not there yet. So this is like adulthood with guidance, which is what makes college so awesome. And I have learned so much about myself this year. I've lived on my own for the very first time. My roommate moved out after my first semester, so this whole semester I've lived alone, which has been an amazing experience. I miss my roommate though. She's missed. I love her. But sorry guys, I'm like having the hiccups a little bit while I'm talking to you guys, which sucks. But I've learned so much about myself this year. I really, really have. I've learned that, like I was saying, loneliness isn't a curse. And because I've been so isolated, because I've been so lonely and alone, I guess I've realized that I don't need anything or anyone but God and myself and my mother. And I've been talking about that in our last couple episodes, but this is a concept that just stays with me. I just can't seem to shake it because it's just so true. No matter where I go or how many people I meet or what I do, the only two things that are constant are God and myself. So I've learned how to prioritize those two things. Now, I have to say, I have fallen into sin, into temptation a lot this semester, and I'm working on getting out of it. I have to be authentic with you guys. I have to be 100% transparent. I've done it's college. I've done things that I'm not proud of. But I know that at the end of the day, God still loves me. I still love God, and I'm committed to obeying Him. I'm committed to listening to His word, and that's a goal that I have for the summer, like to really lock in with my Bible grind. That's what I call it. Like, there were so many times, especially this semester, that I've gotten to know God and gotten to see His face and see His character. There's a part in Exodus where Moses sees the hand of God, and that's the closest a human being has ever gotten to seeing God. And that's kind of how I felt this semester. Like, I've really gotten to know, especially last semester as well, but I've really gotten to see God and see His character. And if you know me, you know I love the Lord. I'm always going to talk about Him. I'm always going to sing His praises because God has gotten me through everything. God's the reason I'm on this couch right now speaking to you, because I was never supposed to be here. I was never supposed to have made it. But I have learned so much this semester and this year, and a lot of it has been that all I need is the Lord and I. That's all I need. And I have to prioritize what the Lord wants. I have to prioritize what the Lord wants for me, and I have to prioritize myself. I know that I've been described to be a selfish person. I'll be honest with you guys. I have been told by, I think, a few friends and some people in my family that I'm a self-centered person. And I always look at that as a negative thing. And it is a negative thing because you don't want to be self-centered. You don't want to make people feel like, you're the queen of the world or whatever. So I've worked on that. But I've looked at being alone and being self-centered differently, especially this school year, because I've realized that at the end of the day, I only have two people. I only have the Lord and myself. I know I keep repeating that, but it's the truth. So why not put my needs first? Because that's who's going to be there. That's a constant in my life. Why not put what God wants of me first? God wants me to follow His 10 commandments. So why not put those 10 commandments first? Why try and follow all these guidelines from the book of life that I don't want to follow when I can just follow the guidelines that the Lord gave me and follow and respect my boundaries? Do you get what I'm saying there? Do you get are you picking up what I'm putting down? I feel like you're picking up what I'm putting down, which is why I'm going to continue spin some knowledge on you guys. I've also learned the true art of loving yourself and knowing who you are. If you guys know me, then you guys know that I will always say that. Know who you are. My mother used to always say that to me, and I never got it until I grew up. Growing up is realizing that your mama really do be right about everything. Moving to Boulder was such a culture shock, partially because of the beauty standards and stuff here. I've never considered myself to be a beauty standard or this like glamorous or beautiful person or anything. But I never was typically ashamed or made fun of because of how I looked. Never. Moving to Boulder, that happened. The beauty standard here was like, you have to be skinny, extremely blonde, and in a sorority and white and rich, and that's how you're going to get through life here. And I'm none of those things. And I kind of looked at myself. I had to look at myself at the beginning of the school year, and I was talking about this on live earlier. It's kind of crazy how this came into the podcast. I kind of had to look at myself in the mirror at the beginning of the year and just say, I'm never going to be any of these things. I'm never going to be super blonde. I'm never going to be super skinny. I'm never going to be like this skinny girl who's, blonde and rich and in a sorority. That's never going to be me. So who am I? And once I figured out who I was like, how do I make that the best me? And that's what I stand for. I never wanted to cosplay and be someone that I'm not and that I will never be. I'm never going to try and be that person. And I do receive a lot of backlash and a lot of hate because I feel like I don't try and assimilate a culture that I don't want to partake in. I am comfortable with who I am, and a lot of people have issues seeing a black woman or just a woman of color in media be comfortable with themselves. But I'm comfortable with myself. I don't want to change myself. I don't want to be someone that I'm not, and I'm not trying to pretend that I'm someone that I'm not. And I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable with themselves. But liking yourself doesn't mean that you like people any less, you know? And because I like myself doesn't mean that you have to like yourself any less. It's not an issue of comparison. I just like myself. I like the way that I look. I like the weight that I'm at. I like the body that I'm in. I like who I am and what I look like and who I am on the inside, because that's what matters. And I'm not going to try and change that because it makes people uncomfortable. Those are like 2 things that I've learned this year. Now, give me a second. I'm pointing into our outline. I was doing so well like freeballing, but I forgot a little bit because I'm only human. Now, I kind of want to talk to you guys about what I thought college would be versus what it is. Now, going to college, I did not have super high expectations. I did not think I was going to go in and just have this booming social life and all A's and all these things, because I've been to high school, and when I went to high school, I thought all those things and none of them came into fruition. So I was like, okay, let me be realistic this time when setting goals. But I did think it was going to go a little bit more smoothly than it has gone, and it's none of those things. College is learning to deal with life, and life comes with its ups and downs, but the downs are different because you don't have your parents there to kind of save you from hitting rock bottom. And in college, you will hit rock bottom. But the best part about hitting rock bottom is getting back up, because you will also get back up. And it's kind of a sense of fulfillment because you get back up on your own. You get to do it on your own. You don't have to have people to carry you or get you through certain things, because you get through it on your own. And it makes you feel confident, it makes you feel good within yourself, and it makes you feel fulfilled. I truly feel fulfilled in myself because I was able to pick myself up from certain situations that I never thought I would get back up from alone. So college, comes with stress and heaviness and disappointment and health issues and all the things that I've, encountered this year. But it also came with, getting to know who I am, which is priceless. Getting to understand my priorities, my boundaries, the person that I want to become, all of those things, which is absolutely priceless. College is the school of life. It teaches you a lot about your major, but it also will teach you a lot about the person that you're going to be, okay? And that is beautiful. Now I want to transition into talking about what this year taught me. I wrote down 5 core lessons. The first being that you can do everything right and still struggle. The second being, not everyone is meant to stay in your life. Third, your relationship with God and yourself matters more than anything. Fourth, you learn who you are when things fall apart. And 5, you don't have to have it all figured out. These are all things that resonate a lot with me because I've previously struggled with being a control freak. I previously struggled with being a people pleaser. I previously struggled with trying to live a perfect lifestyle. I struggled with all those things. And then I realized, why would I live a life that makes me so unhappy to live an aesthetic that I don't crave anymore? And once I started to change those constants, those variables in my life got so much easier and got so much better. And although I've spent a large portion of this semester, particularly alone and in my dorm, I think that there's just so much beauty in that because I've really gotten to explore so many variables about myself. There's an episode that I did called Figuring Things Out, and it's just an episode all about how I was trying to figure myself out in college and how I had to go through all these different experiences to figure myself out in college. And I'm glad that I had to go through all those experiences, even though they were crazy, even though they were a lot, even though everything was crazy at times, because I've been able to figure me out. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about my identity shift, who I was coming in versus what I am now. Coming into college, I kind of was this extroverted person who had all these walls up, was terrified of being vulnerable. I didn't really I had a relationship with God, but it wasn't the strongest, and there was just a lot that has changed. Now I realize that I'm a little more introverted than I had originally thought. I'm not as much of a people person as I was in high school. I've seen that. Which is kind of funny because you would think it would be the opposite way around, but whatever. And I've realized that there's beauty in vulnerability. And I've been more vulnerable with people. I've opened myself up more, which was a thing that I wanted to do. I've become so closed off because of some of the traumatic experiences that I've dealt with in my life. And I've become so closed off because of it. And I didn't like that. I was bleeding on people who never cut me. And once I realized that issue, I decided that vulnerability was beautiful and that I had to explore it. And I have. I've let people actually get to know me and know things about myself that I haven't shared before. Stuff about my childhood, stuff about growing up, stuff about who I am now, stuff that I didn't particularly want to share. I've let that, kind of happen. I've let my walls kind of come down. And I have to say, there is such strength in vulnerability. I'm so glad that I've been able to let my walls come down so much this year. And I'm so glad that I've been able to be so authentic with you guys this year. I feel like one thing that I kind of struggled with was trying to portray a perfect life on the internet. And that's something that I also let go of this year. I've been very open and honest with you guys about my struggles. Like, when stuff goes wrong, I just tell you guys about it. I don't just pretend like, oh, I'm this socialite who has this perfect life because I have an amazing career and, such amazing people that support me. Like, I do have those things, but I also struggle. And being vulnerable enough to share those struggles with you guys this year versus past years on the internet, it's just a beautiful thing. So I came into college thinking I was her, and I had to become her. And there's growth and there's beauty in that growth. And I'm really happy that I grew through what I went through. Is that a saying, grow through what you go through? I don't know. But I want to tie it back to this end of the beginning concept. Freshman year, I feel, is the foundation of the rest of your life. I do. Because it's the first year that you're going to figure out who you are, what you're meant to be, and how things are going to plan out for you. It's your first time living on your own. It's your first time without your parents' support. It's all of those things. And it's terrifying because everything's up to you, but it's also so exciting and awesome because you're figuring out, what kind of person am I going to be for the rest of my life? And I've asked myself that a million times. And even though I don't completely have the answer, from what I'm seeing so far, I'm very happy and I'm very, very pleased. Now, do I have stuff to work on? Absolutely. I'm always going to be a work in progress. But living on my own and being on my own and, experiencing freshman year has really shown that to me. And that's why I'm so grateful for it. So I'm turning 19. My freshman year's over. I'm going back to Chicago for the summer, which I'm so excited for. And a new chapter is about to begin. So that's why I feel like it's the beginning, but it's the end of the beginning. It's bittersweet. And I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss so many things about this year. I'm going to miss, going to the library with my friends and, go to the dining hall and going out sometimes and, the freedom and the chaoticness of being a freshman in college and being young and dumb. And what is it, the Kevin Gates saying? Fresh, broken in college, fresh with low mileage. I'm going to miss that. Being broken in college fresh with low mileage. But, because you have no life experience. You have absolutely, genuinely no life experience, and you have to figure things out. You have to figure out life with no experience prior. My sister once told me that the ages of 15 through 19 are so hard because everything's happening for the first time, and it's hard because it's the first time. You have no experience dealing with it prior. But that's beautiful. And now that I've dealt with everything pretty much for the first time, now I can deal with everything for the second time. That's what this chapter feels like, dealing with stuff for the second time. I'm going to be 19. That's grown. That's sexy. That's fun. That's exciting for the most part. And I'm going to be a sophomore in college. I'm going to be living, I'm going to have a roommate again because living on my own was fun, but I kind of miss living with a person. I'm going to be living with someone. I'm going to be back on campus. I'm going to have a whole new job, a whole new set of responsibilities. But now I think I know how to handle it a little bit better. Your freshman year, I want to let you guys know that if you don't have everything figured out, like I said, it's okay because it's your freshman year. You're just getting started. And that's something I wish I could tell myself all the times that I panicked, all the times that I had anxiety, all the times that I thought things weren't going to pan out perfectly. You're just getting started. You're going to be okay. Okay? Even when it feels like it's not going to be okay, you're going to be okay. I promise. Now, here's some at life. Oh, and I wrote this thing down. I think freshman year is the part where life humbles you so you can rebuild yourself correctly. Because it's very true. Now, here's some advice to listeners that I wrote down. If you feel behind, you're not. If it didn't go how you planned, that's normal. And if you feel lost, that's where growth starts. Because it is. Now, this year gave me... How do I phrase this? I feel like this year didn't give me everything that I wanted, but it gave me everything that I needed. And it's kind of a bittersweet close. Like, I'm going back home and I'm like, wow, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss, even though there's so many times I complained and so many times that I cried, I'm like, wow, I'm going to miss this chapter of my life because it feels like this chapter is closing, but a whole new one's beginning. And how beautiful is it that I'm alive to experience that? I genuinely love you guys so much. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of Literally My Life. I'm glad I was able to get this recorded tonight because she almost didn't happen. This almost did not happen. So I'm happy to be here because it was hard to get it recorded. But by the grace of God, no weapon formed against me prospered. I started Literally My Life when I was 16 years old. I was alone in my bedroom, and it's prospered into this beautiful thing, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. And I love you guys genuinely so much. I loved you guys then, and I love you guys now. And I just love you guys. And I will see you guys next week on yet another episode of Literally My Life, and it'll be a very fun episode because I'll be 19, so I'll be a little bit wiser. See you guys.